With all the success you've had, do you still face, are you currently facing any fears, or are there fears about the horizon?
Man, I have to give you amazing props. You're such a curious person about the people that you talk to. I love it. I love it, man.
Thank you.
The answer is, thank you. Are you kidding me? I've been on a ton of podcasts and people just same questions.
Welcome to the Idea Climbing Radio Show. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're here with James Foo Torres, better known as Foo. He's a renowned marketing strategist with a background in PR and branding, a host of top 1.5% of podcasts worldwide. That's awesome. And a 2 times international best-selling author. Following his service in the Air Force, Foo launched his company, Imperium Authority, to amplify the impact of exceptional business and thought leaders. His goal is to empower ideas into movements, which is good because today we're talking about trusted advisors and big ideas and bringing them to life. Thank you so much for being here, Foo. I appreciate you making the time.
Thanks for having me. And one thing I should have updated, we jumped to the top 1% recently.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a heck of an accomplishment.
Thank you.
And I'd love to start with your story. As far as we're going to talk more about trusted advisors, but as far as your story, we spoke about it a little bit on our last call, going from a service provider to a trusted advisor. What did that journey look like for you? And then we're going to look at some advice for other people.
So I was a public relations guy for a while, and as I served a couple clients, start growing my business and growing other people's businesses, I started to identify that position myself as a PR guy was limited because people kind of put me in that box of, oh, you're the PR guy, stay in your lane. And I was looking for something else. So what positioning did I take? What should I do? Should I leave PR? Like, what should I do? And that's how I found about how position myself as a trusted business advisor, that then after I'm there with that position, I can help them with public relations and I can help them with other stuff. Even if I don't do them directly, I can bring other people, but positioning myself as a trusted business advisor, I gain that title when clients ask me for questions to solve problems, not just the one thing, like public relations in this case.
So explain that a little bit deeper. What's the difference between a service provider and a trusted advisor?
So when you're a service provider, you have your service, right? Like, this is your core offer, this is what you do, and people know you by that, and that's it. When you are a trusted business advisor, you know that you earn that title even when you do a service. But if you do that positioning prior to that, it's like, hey, look at me as a fractional CXO, right? It could apply for all these different things, or a director of a department, an advisor, right? Then when you solve, let's say you can solve the problem with taxes or more marketing or with different things, and then they ask you, hey, thanks for solving this problem. And I have these other problems. Can you help me with them? Or do you know somebody that can? That's when you know that you did a good job to position yourself as trusted advisor, because now your clients go to you to solve problems, not to just the specific service that you provide.
What other kind of problems have you come across that you helped find somebody to help them with? Because I know with service providers and trusted advisors, at the end of the day, it comes down to solving problems. That's what people pay to make the problems go away. What are some examples of things that you've solved or you brought somebody in to solve in your work history?
For example, like, I don't do websites. So I don't go into the technical side. I don't have a website guy in my team. I do have a preferred partner for that. I already have the trust of somebody that they was like, hey, I need actually need somebody that can help me do like CMO work and stuff, but I'm not ready to get there yet. But right now I just need a website, one page site, get something out just so I can get clients to land there. And then I was like, okay, look, I can make that happen. I got paid. I bring my contractor does that. He takes control of that, and then he does that, right? Like, that's an example that I did like last week, so.
Pretty recent. And you mentioned in your profile that you gave me, your goal is to empower idea into movements. What does that mean to you?
So for me, I am a big picture guy. And I want to ultimately, like most business owners that I out to start a business, is to make the world a better place, right? So for me to be able to create meaningful change, almost the only way to do it is basically having a movement. And for that, that's why I take the ideas of people like, oh, like I have this idea, I want to go to market with this, or I have this business, but I have this idea to make it bigger. So I say, if we want to propel that to get hundreds of thousands or even millions of people to support that, you need to start a movement that people can get behind on.
So talk a little bit more about that. How do you start a movement? What's the grassroots or the ground floor of a movement? How do you get one started in the first place?
So you need to be relatable. You need to align with people in your values. Like, so people are like-minded, they can relate to your story or to their story, right? Then there is the mission, what are we doing right now? And then there's the vision. Where are we going with this? And when you have those three components, that's the pillars of a movement, how I call them.
So talk a little bit more about the first one, the story.
So it's having something that people can relate with, right? A common struggle, an injustice, something that is outdated that a lot of people are struggling with. So when you can find that thing that people can align with, and especially if it aligns with not so only the problem, but the values around that problem, that typically have those values, and now you're like, oh, these are my people, right? Oh, you're my people, and now together we are like our people. That's that first part of being relatable and having aligned in the values.
How do you find the people? I mean, how do you if it's the right word, how do you qualify the people? Because not just anyone can jump on board to build something into a mission and get behind something. How do you find people that share your story or want to enhance your story?
So first, you have to be very clear on what you're doing, right? So like, what are you doing? Who you doing it for? What the distinguishing factor, right? So you put those things together, and then you go and you have all your validation, your assumptions, right? So okay, giving about these things, I'm gonna assume that this is the perfect client. This is where I find them. This is the struggles that they have, and this is how life will look like success, right? So you have all those assumptions, and then you go to market to validate that. Okay, hey, look, I'm trying to solve this problem, and this is the solution, this is the price, this is the things, to be part of the community, to be part of the program, whatever the case may be. And then as you go to market with that and you get feedback, then slowly, like, people will start asking, it's like, oh yeah, look, I align with all these things, like, do you have something? Yeah, well, actually I'm launching this in a couple of weeks, so if you would like me to, I'll reach out back to you, and you can join the community when it's ready. That's kind of how I approach that.
Speak a little bit more to the people watching or listening about going to market. What does that entail for you in your world?
First, like, it's like I said, establishing that, like, what we want to do, who we want to do it for, and what's different, about us that nobody else is doing it, right? Because if not, then you're a commodity if other people are doing it. So then it's going to, you go to this people and just get feedback from the people that you have identified. So that's going to market, because going to market is not let me just go to Facebook, let me go to start posting and start advertising. Going to market first should be, let me use lean marketing strategies. That could be cold calling, that could be DMing people, that could be using my own network first, and look for people that will fit the ideal client avatar, validate from there, and then validation with money, not with people saying that they like it. Because if they're not buying, then they could just tell you that they like it and that they really don't. And then after you got a couple people in, it's good, it makes sense. Now that's when you go to advertising.
What does the advertising phase look like once you get focused?
Well, after you get that validation, now you have the information that you need to be able to say, okay, I already know, because I got these people, where do they hang out? So where do I put those ads now? I know, because I know them better. And obviously it's a continuous thing, right? Like, you be testing, you keep asking the people that said yes, they're already in the community, where can I find more people like you, all that stuff, right? So that's, you go where they at, and you join the conversations that they already have in their mind. That's what we want to be very clear and make sure that we validate first. So then the advertising becomes simple, to be honest. So
when does the vision come into play?
The vision, comes into play since the beginning, because you're always, that's like a seed that you're planting throughout the whole process, right? This is where we're doing right now, but ultimately the vision is what you're gonna end up doing, right? So for example, for accountants that I work a lot with accountants. Right now, the mission is to help them go from service providers to trusted business advisors for their clients, so they can do more leverage work and less volume work. But the vision, it's how can we make this accounting industry better so more people can come into the industry rather than the other way around that's happening, that more people are leaving the industry than coming in. And by making it better, then we get more people, and then accountants speak the language of business, so they are needed in the market, right? That's just one example. This applies to other industries too.
Yeah, of course. So what goes into crafting a vision? How do you get started? If it's in your own head, you need to get it out. What are the steps or process of crafting a successful vision? That would be a better way to phrase it. How do you craft a successful vision?
Crafting a successful vision, it's a tricky thing, because you want to dream very big, but at the same time, you have to be realistic. It has to be something reachable. It could be the time to reach, could be years, or you could be pursuing that the rest of your life, and maybe the vision becomes true after you die, right? Like that can happen. I mean, it has happened in science and a lot of different industries. So you have to look for something that is bigger than any individual, something that can a lot of people you see can getting behind on, and because it's something that it's you see it identify as needed, and then you go and you see that other people also identify it as something that is needed, that needs to get done sooner rather than later, but at some point. Like sometimes the vision could be very, very long, right? Like I said. So that's how I look at crafting the vision.
And you had mentioned three parts. It was the story, the vision, and I forgot what was the third
Mission
thing
and vision. Mission is present,
Mission.
vision is the
Okay.
future.
So same question for mission. What do you do to make it enticing for people to join your mission, get behind your mission, and help move your mission forward? Because at the end of the day, it's your idea that you need to share, but people need to get behind it. How do you craft a mission that people want to get behind and support?
Ideally, position it as something that it's not your mission, is the mission that needs to get done, and a lot of people agree to that, and you are serving them more than they're serving you, right? Like you are come to this community and I'll be here to serve you, and this is what we're gonna be doing. So the mission is the like what we established that we're gonna be doing, and you need to make sure that the people in the community and behind this mission, they are clear that we're doing this work because ultimately this is gonna take us to the vision, right? Like, so this is the right things to do in the present so we can have the future that we want.
So once you get those three components and you have the big picture, if you will, put together, glued together, however you want to phrase it, as far as trusted advisors, can you dig a little bit deeper about becoming a trusted advisor? Is it helping them solve one problem at a time? Is it working with the founder, CEO? Dig a little deeper into how do you become a trusted advisor if a service provider is watching and they're thinking, wow, I want to have something different than just being another service provider. I want to be a trusted advisor. What does that road look like?
Well, it's something that is customizable, really,
Okay.
because it's all. I always start every engagement with an assessment, and okay, where are you at right now? Then we talk about goals. What are you willing to do? What you're not willing to do? How do you want your future to look like? And
Yeah.
then we develop a strategic plan to match those things that you want. And then now the next step is, okay, we need to match you with somebody that matches with the things that you're willing to do, you wanted to do, and to accomplish those results. So when it comes to being a trusted business advisor, it could be so many different ways, because you can position yourself as a fractional CXO, right? And then but if not, then you can just position yourself almost as a consultant, as an advisor, or you can be a board member from an advisory board that now is helping multiple companies or one company, right? So there is different things, but ultimately, you have to pick your lane of, okay, what's the lane that I want to be? I want to go with the finances. I want to go to the marketing. I want to go with the performance of the CEO.
Yeah.
Like I do all those different things. So then you're then solving problems that are at a strategic level, not at a technical level.
Okay, I like that. Let's dive into that. Strategic versus technical. What's the difference? What's an example? What does it look like?
Strategy is, okay, you're thinking about the problem, and then what is the solution, not what are necessarily all the tiny little steps, the technical steps that are going to take to do that, but this is the dream outcome. Like, this is what we're going to define as success. This is where we're starting. So we create an overarching, almost like a 30,000 foot view. That's how most people say about the thing. But then when you want to zoom in, that's when you get the technicians, right? Because when you say you need more traffic to a page, you're not saying, oh, we're going to do SEO and we're going to post, and for that, we're going to post all this and Google My Business and blah, 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 right? That's the technical side. It's in the strategic side is, we need more traffic to this. Some things to consider are this, some things to all companies doing, right? But at a high level, not exactly, oh, this is the amount of content with this amount of words, with this amount of topics, blah, 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 right? That's the technical side.
So let's look at an example. What is one of your earlier stories when you crossed the bridge between service provider and trusted advisor? What did you do? What's the story there?
So for me, I started breaking that, like that crossing that bridge by saying that I'm an advisor, right? Like, so that's like the first key. The second thing is also, not only I started saying, and I still do this because it's completely true, is not only what I bring to the table that I can personally do, or even my team, my assistant or whatever, but this the value that I bring as a whole to the table. So I have my own advisors. I have my own advisory board that I go to. So it's not just what I can solve, and it's what I can go and discuss with a strategic advisory board, that then we bring that to the table. So I help my clients to do the same thing. So that's kind of how I look. This is how I want. I do it to myself, and then I teach it. So that's kind of how I was doing the transition, by explaining it to them and then them making sense. I was like, okay, this positioning is working.
Personally, I'm a huge fan, whether you call it mentorship, advisory board, whatever you might call it, board of directors, if it's more formal. Talk a little bit more about, I love that you're an advisor who has an advisory board. If someone's listening or watching, it's like, that I'd love to do it. I just don't know what to do. How do you build a successful advisory board? What did you do? How do you do it?
So by networking and with the right people, and coming in and giving value, a lot of people that, typically they know they know a lot more about you, at least in some specific areas. So that's how I started connecting with people locally or everywhere in the nation virtually. And I started picking the people, like, okay, this guy is really good at copywriting. This guy is really good at sales. This guy is like the big picture guy that has all this network that I can also tap into. And that's kind of how I started building that. And I'm lucky enough that I connected with Jason Miller, which is the CEO Strategic Advisor Board. Like, that's the name of his company, and has 10 CEOs got together and formed this, and they became my client first. And then I started getting advice from them, and now we have this mutually beneficial relationship that's lasted over 2.5 years now.
So when you identify the types of people you wanted to, whether it's copywriting, building a board, scaling a company, how do you approach potential advisors? What did you do what was that initial interaction? You want them as an advisor. What did you do to get them as an advisor?
The most common thing that I do is I invite them to my podcast. So that's a way that I can lead with value. It's like, hey, I think you're doing something very impressive. Would love to interview you. Would you want to be a guest on my podcast? And people usually feel very good about being invited to talk about themselves. And so that's my hack. My networking hack is using my podcast to network with authority, I call it.
How long have you been doing that as a networking hack?
2 years.
That's something I just had, actually, how we met Steve Ramona on my podcast, and that was what we spoke about. Could you dig a little bit deeper into that? Because I think so many people look at, which is important, you have to have views, downloads, you have to have some kind of metric to grow the podcast. But so many people overlook the fact that this is an awesome networking tool. You can meet people that you can't just say, oh, can I pick your brain? What do you do? How do you? It's like, people pay me a lot of money to pick my brain. No, You can't pick my
Exactly.
brain. Dig a little deeper, and what do you do so people can do it the right way?
I literally, I think I did a live 2 days ago that I used those exact words. The difference between asking somebody, "Can I pick your brain?" and inviting them to a podcast interview where you literally will pick their brain. But it's you're offering them that exposure, and I there's extra steps that you can do right now that you have this. I do video, so that way I have the video, have the audio,
Yeah.
and then I can take clips. I can take the transcript and make it into articles, into I do it to newsletters and things. So that's the value adds that I keep adding. It's not, hey, come here and we're gonna throw it on YouTube on edit it and that's it. Which, hey, you're starting out, go record content, get it out, right? Like Steve Ramona
Mhm.
said, I just had Steve Ramona actually yesterday. I think it was in my podcast that we were recording. So, and we were talking about this because I've been using this, way before I even met him, and we align a lot on those things. So those are the things. Is just I always did it with the intention of being able to get knowledge from people that have it to people that need it. And often I'm the one that needs it and I record it, and then there's other people that needs it too. So
That's half the reason I write up my own show notes, is because I learn so much. I get in interview mode and I'm listening, but I'm also, what are we going to talk about? Keep the interview moving forward. But that's one of the reasons I write my own show notes. It's like a freaking PhD in business, depending who you interview.
I
And
know.
how do you keep advisors engaged once you get them, like, say, on your pocket? That's great. Your foot's in the door. They get to know you. You get to know them. You get to learn, vice versa. You get to promote them. Once you make initial contact, how do you keep them engaged over, even if it's 3 months, much less more than that, an extended period of time? What do you do to keep them in your corner?
Ideally, develop joint ventures. So there is a
Okay.
big incentive to stay connected. So I can even, some of my advisors, they're willing to come into a sales call with me. They're willing to help me in the, like, I have this call for talking about strategy, something specific, and you come in and help me. Like, I'll give you some background so you're prepared, and then we come here and they do that, right? But all those things is because I paid. I was like, hey, this client is paying me this. I'll give you a percentage of this. Can you come here and help me? So that those are the things that I've established different, slightly different joint ventures with them, and then other ways to, like Strategic Advisor Board, for example. They make me a guest podcaster for their podcast, and I don't have, so that we have this very solid relationship. I'm the second with the most episodes, and I have a very close relationship with Jason because we talk every single week. So every single week we talk at least 1 hour or 30 minutes, and
Wow.
we go into, okay, this is where I'm going, this is where you're going. So like and I am always driving people to him, he's driving people to me, and we're building something very big. I mean, there's huge things coming up between me and Strategic Advisor Boards, or because of that connection with Jason Miller.
So for advisors, what's the other side of the coin? If someone's thinking, I want to give back, or joint ventures, whatever it might be, what advice would you have for potential advisors so they can be a better advisor with some kind of method to the madness, so they're not just telling stories about their lives, but they're actually making an impact?
Ask and shut up, right? Like, that's a big part too. Is like, sometimes we are the advisors, but
Yeah.
it's about not giving them the answers, but guiding them to the answers. So there is some consulting. It's like, oh, I'll just give you the answer. Like, coaching is when you start like guiding them, right? So when you're an advisor, you kind of mix the two, and you kind of put the hat that you need given in the given moment. And so that's what I invite people. It's not to just give away the answers. You can give examples and things
Mhm.
because they won't learn it. So you need to make sure that they are understanding why are we taking this process. Sometimes it even looks simplistic, or like the validation process. A lot of people think like, oh, that's common sense or blah blah blah, but then
Yeah.
people want to skip steps, and you just push back. So like, ask questions, guide them to the answer so they understand the why, and they don't have to question you why you're saying that. And then make sure that you push back when they want to skip steps, in you knowing that that's something that needs to get done.
Well, back to the other side of the coin, you mentioned joint ventures. How do you go about creating one, especially if someone's at a higher level of success in business than you? And I know some people listening and watching might be thinking, like, what can I offer them? What does that look like? What did you do to get these people attention and actually build joint ventures with people, like I said, that might be a higher level than you as far as success goes, to keep them interested in you? Was it the money? Was it the percentages? What did it look like?
That's the first thing, is to make sure that you know what they want, what did they consider valuable. Someone like Jason Miller, yeah, he loves money, but a lot of times he values other things more than money. And with him, I was able to relate with, because we were both veterans. So find people that you have something in common. That's the easiest way in.
Yep.
And then be very interested more than being interesting. Just be interested, like, what do they want, what do they want, and look if you can provide those things, or find somebody that can provide those things. And to then, even if you don't know and you're much smaller, like I was, I mean, I've been in business for 3 years and a half, and I've been with Jason for 2 years and a half. So I was just a year in business when I started with
Yeah.
Jason. So, or like 11 months in. And I was able to add value because I have my public relations connections, and he wanted public relations. So not necessarily, oh, drive me for like money and think. Ultimately, he wanted to do more money, but he said, just give me the PR connections. I'll make money with that. I'll know how to leverage it. So you see, it's just depending on what some skill set that you have, or some resources, some connections that you have. Find if you have something that they want. If not, then go and find other people that can figure that out. But
Mhm.
be interested. That's the key thing.
So what does that look like? I mean, this is an if I hear you correctly and I'm on point, an informal board of advisors, if you will, for yourself.
I
What
have like
skill set?
both. I have both. I have the informal, and then I have like the formal, because the strategic advisor board, they're actually an advisor board for me, and they are an advisor board. So
Talk a little bit more about that. Is it like you did mention, as far as, okay, we talk an hour, a month, a week, whatever it might be. There's informal and formal. For the formal side, what are some other criteria of having a successful formal advisory board? What do you do?
So first, if it's a formal one, it's, you gotta then find it, right? Because if it's a formal one and you kind of starting out, that's just, it's not to you to create it. If it's kind of informal, then obviously you can create your own board of advisors by just having some people here, people there, and you kind of have it there, but they're not together. But if they're together, then that's how I see it, more formal. Like strategic advisor board, when I met them, they were already together and they had this thing, and I offer value first and went through Jason, and then they now open up to, like, they're my advisory board, and anything that I need from any of the board advisors, I just add them on Slack, and I can, I know them in person. We've done a lot of stuff together. So that's how, like, I have them. And anytime that, if I have a big client, like, I'm never afraid to having a too big of a client or anything, because as long as they willing to commit to the process and pay the big bucks to solve big problems, then I have the
Yeah.
advisory board and their network and other networks that I have to be able to solve basically any problem directly or indirectly.
So is that, how dirty do their hands get with your clients? Is it something informal where you go to like a Jason, say, I'm facing problem X with this big client. They got a big idea and I need to help them. Do they give you the solutions? Do they actually get their hands dirty, come on board and help with your client? What does that look like on either side of the coin, as far as how involved do they get with your clients?
It depends. So
Okay.
so it depends on the client. I mean, I can get Jason on like speed dial and get him to be on
Yeah.
something, right? And that's something that I have that privilege to have that type of relationship with him. So if I need him to get his hands dirty, he's willing. He prefers not to. Obviously, he respects his time. A figure guy, you imagine like that, you don't get there by just not respecting your time, right? So and I am very respectful of their time too. So I never bring my advisors to the table unless I feel like I definitely need my big guns, so to speak.
Do you serve in that role to anyone else, as far as on an informal level, or maybe offer advice for other people who are in your shoes that are up and coming right now? What roles do you play as an advisor, formal or informal, like we've been talking about?
So formal, I take the more fractional CMO role. So that's my formal kind of advisory role that I have. informal, I have people that have been PR clients typically, that now I give them advice because they are either helping me, or it's just me just paying it forward because they were on a situation that I knew that they needed the help, and I was like, hey, look, I've been very stuck and I just didn't know the answer, and someone taught me that this changing this positioning, and it changed my life. It changed the way that I look at business and the way that I approach marketing and just business growth in general. And that's something that I feel almost is my duty to pass this forward, because it changed me so much. And that, together with the self-development side, that's a little bit different, because I think that you cannot develop a business if you're not able to develop yourself first. So that's the other thing.
Well, a common theme and word here has been advice. What makes good advice?
What makes good advice? What a good question. I the way that I see it is, once you have a customized systematic approach, that is, you have a proprietary system, you have something
Mhm.
that this is it, right? And that's at a strategic level. What is good advice is, in my opinion, something that you can say that will make it very simple for people to understand and take action on. Because if you're able to say, oh, this is good advice, but it's not very digestible and it's not broken down enough for people to go and take action immediately, then it's
Mhm.
not that good of advice. But if you break it down, that like Alex Moses says, like, oh, you should be more charismatic. Okay, but what does that mean? That's not great advice. Oh, well,
Yeah.
to be more charismatic, well, can you do every time that somebody comes in, you greet them and you say these things, and you always smiles often, nod, and all those things. Can you do those things? Great. That's what gets you to be charismatic. So that's the difference between the advice that is just not broken down enough, and then the advice that it is.
So if I'm on point, it sounds like good advice leads to action and traction and results you can measure. Would that be right?
Yes.
So with big ideas, we've spoke about advisors, formal, informal, a lot of stuff. As far as for you, what's your next big idea? I mean, what's next for you in this role of trusted advisor and building your company?
So for me, it's as I keep growing from this, like this fractional CMO, I see it as the new step of evolution on where marketers almost need to go, because this disjointed, the oh, I come in as a service advisor, I'm very good at just ads, but if I haven't validated it, then you're just hoping that it's gonna work, and then you start doing it, right? So that fractional CMO, it's a step upwards, where, okay, let's start with looking at this as I'm the CMO of this company, and
Mhm.
everything that where you at and where you're gonna be, right? So that's this how I evolved to this. The next thing is how to create then your own advisory board and community, and mix this thing of, you get people, you set the foundations, you get them to be able to do them on their own, and then you get the membership, where people, you can stay in touch, you keep feeding them more information, make sure that they're applying the things and the accountability. And then there are things like retreats. And that's where the live events that I told you off air that I'm focusing
Yeah.
on, because that's the model that I see working for. I mean, Saab is doing it, and other companies, big companies are doing it. And it's how, okay, let me give you this machine that I'm gonna implement in your business with a very solid foundation. And now you have it. Now we're in maintenance phase just with a membership community. And then we go, okay, let's keep up, let's just be in touch in person and get the real life connections during retreats, during conventions. And that's the live event component that is basically irreplaceable for very strong and genuine connections.
You mentioned foundation a couple times just now. What goes into a good foundation for an advisory board? How can you build that foundation? Because it's the old one. You have to have a foundation before you build a house, much less a mansion. So what goes into the foundation of a successful advisory board as far as preparation goes?
Everybody, it's almost like got me thinking on like the movement building, right? Like, you gotta find people that aligns with your values, that the story, like everybody can get behind that. Then that they complement each other. So when it comes to the mission, right, what are we doing right now to make this work, to make this vision that we have of having this amazing advisory board, so that everybody is in the right seat, right? They're wearing the right hats, and it makes sense. Okay, this is your strength, this is yours, and you're covering all the bases to be able to help a business in a holistic way. And then that they align with the vision, and they're all willing to not only what we're doing today, but we're gonna do it for extended period of time, and maybe we start moving out of certain responsibilities as we grow. Then that's like the vision, right? Where are we going? How are we picturing this? And they can be pivots, right? They can be pivots or
Mm.
micro pivots along the way, but ultimately the big picture stays relatively the same typically.
Well, I think it's what's also really important, and I think people would want to know a little bit more about, as far as trusted advisor relationships, and the board of advisors, informal or formal, if they're two separate ones, and let me know about both sides of the coin. How long do they last? How do you know when they need to end? Or is there a certain amount of time that you generally say? Is it like, we'll check in 12 months from now and to see how it's going? How long do they last, and when do you know when it's time to end one?
To end the
An advisory
relationship.
Relationship, yeah. When does it kind of just run its course? They've helped you as much as they can.
So ideally, this is an ongoing thing forever, right? Like this is the idea. And that's when it comes to, well, we can do a 6 months to a year, or it could be up to 3 years, 5 years, whatever the case may be, that requires for the company to get from where they are to where they want to be. After we accomplished that mission, right? And now
Yeah.
it's the maintenance phase. And that maintenance phase is the community, typically a paid community that things keep changing. I mean, AI just came here the other day. And if you're part of a community that is constantly in the trenches and looking for what's out there, what's next, because marketing and everything, every industry is typically constantly changing and evolving. So that's when the maintenance phase comes into play. And then if there's, for example, could be, oh, we're doing a very specialized training or masterclass on how to use AI for your business in this specific way. And now that because you're in the community, you're maybe there's even a mastermind component in there, right? And then now you're exposed to these things, and now let me just go to that training and just pay for that one training, or maybe I get it for free just because I've been paying the membership, right? This has a lot of different ways that you can do this, but we do the program 6 months to a year. That's typically something that we accelerate, something that you would do by your own in 3 to 5 years, doing in 1 year to 6 months, right? That's why you're paying to be in this type of programs. And then from there, you go into the community space where you're just like a maintenance thing. And then there's the masterclass, live events, retreats, so on and so forth.
We've covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. I'd love to know two things to close out. First, if someone's listening and they want to, because this is what we just spoke about, they want to find a trusted advisor. If you were to say, do one thing, at least this one thing above all else, where would you tell them to start? What would you tell them to do? If nothing else, do this one thing. What would you say?
Validate before going into spending a considerable amount in advertising. That's the one thing that I would say.
And as far as moving from a service provider to a trusted advisor, what's the best starting point? If someone says, I'm not there yet, but I want to get started, where would you tell them to start?
It's all positioning. It's all positioning. If you don't feel like you're there, that means that you don't feel like you're good enough. So then if it's either a mindset thing, or then surround yourself with people that know more than you, so you never feel like you're alone, so you can close a huge client and you have your people that are going to help you. So it's all positioning. So for anybody, it's just how do you position yourself in a position of authority, so you're seen as the same level. So that's why the board member, right? There's the CEO and then the CMO or the CFO, right? You are at the board. It's like a similar level. So how do you position yourself to not seen as a worker, as somebody that is just below, but somebody that is at the top level in the board, has a seat at the table of the big boys table, let's say.
The big boy table. That is a beautiful way to close out. If people want to find you online, where's the best place to go, James? Or Foo, I should say.
Foo. Yeah, let's go by Foo. And Easiest way, probably James L as in Lewis, Foo as in Foo Fighters. That's the easiest way. You put that there. You can send me a DM on Instagram, probably the easiest way. But then I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook. Those are the easiest ways to find me, social media.
Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it, Fu. This has been great.
This has been great. I think there's a lot about it here. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely.